cigarettes or cannabis or alcohol, that there's kind of like I can do it, it's fine, it's not dangerous, it's not bad for me, that kind of mentality. We're very complacent about it, and we've kind of normalised that all our kids are vaping, and that it shouldn't be like that. When she comes off vaping, because she's tried to quit several times, she can't go to school. She's just too sick from all that nicotine withdrawal that she has to stay home for a few days to sort of get through that fatigue. So she gets really tired, headaches, migraines, nausea, just feeling really sick, can't concentrate.
It seems to me deeply ironic that young people take up something like vaping because they see it as a symbol of independence and freedom, an assertion of who they are or who they want to be. And yet what it does is to compromise that freedom, because that's what dependence means. So they have to organise their day and structure it around vaping. They have to think about when they're going to get their next dose. They may have to absent themselves from social occasions. Sometimes we have reports of young people who even have to get up in the night to vape because they're craving nicotine. So I think we need to spend much more time thinking about the psychological burden vaping imposes.
So probably the biggest surprise is they don't realise the nicotine levels that are in these vapes. You know, they're really surprised to hear that they can be up to 50 milligrams of nicotine, when we've heard from parents that their kids are going through a pod in 2 or 3 hours at parties. You know, that's a huge amount of nicotine. And the problem is, you know, parents go, yeah, well, kids experiment, but they're experimenting with something which is highly addictive. It's one of the top 5 most addictive products, and that's what surprises a lot of parents.
With the vaping products, you can actually get much higher concentrations of nicotine than are ever found in cigarettes. And by using these vapes, our youth today are exposing their brains to much higher levels, and there's major concerns within the paediatric field of the effects of the nicotine on that developing brain. What we know from smoking is, you know, when you've been a smoker once, even though you stop, your risk of things like lung cancer drop off over time, but it never returns to the baseline of that which you'd have if you'd never smoked at all. And the same will be true with vaping as well. The effects will drop off over time once you stop, but again, you'll never return to what you would have been if you hadn't done any damage to your airways. We know from studies that people who vape have high incidences of cough, sputum production, wheeze and shortness of breath. We know that vaping impairs sport performance. I have been asked to do a number of talks at things like university hostels actually, and in that I'm always surprised at the amount of feedback that I get from the students who are there, saying how addicted they are to vaping, how they got into it thinking it was just going to be fun, and how they just can't break that habit now. And I feel for them because they do feel trapped. The concentrations of nicotine that they're getting are really high, and they are completely unaware of how addictive it is. I was part of a large Thoracic Society review panel in which we reviewed almost 4,000 studies, and then we published it back in 2019 saying it's our opinion that these are not safe consumer products.
Your lungs are made to breathe clean air. Some people with asthma are compelled to take inhalers, and they have been extensively safety tested. Many people have smoked for generations, and that is very damaging to the lungs. What we don't want to see is a new generation of people addicted to vaping who will then end up with damaged lungs as a result.
The European Society of Cardiology, the American Heart Association, the World Heart Federation, as well as the World Health Organization, all have position statements on this, and they're all pretty much in line. And what they state is that vaping or use of e-cigarettes is not without harm, and that's pretty clear. Vaping or use of e-cigarettes can impact on what we call biomarkers. Now, biomarkers are things that we sort of measure in the body, and that these biomarkers, if they're adversely affected, do increase the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and that we have seen that use of e-cigarettes adversely affects these biomarkers. And so from that, we believe that there may be a cardiovascular risk.
I think as parents we really need to get up to date and understand the impacts of vaping, understand nicotine addiction and potentially what the long-term effects could be on our children if that continues.
There's been this sort of message that e-cigarettes are safe. They're much less harmful than tobacco smoking, and that's been interpreted as by the youth that these things are safe, but that's clearly not the case. They're not without harm, and we need to educate our youth regarding them.